Okay? So what they're going to do is they're going to take one fraction and have you decompose it into partial fractions. I know you have not done this one before. Okay, so what they're really trying to figure out is what two fractions add together to get this fraction. Okay, so they will give you an example. Say they give you 6x minus 2, and it's all over x squared minus 3x minus 10. They want to know what two fractions add together to give you this fraction. Okay. To start it, you basically take the denominator and factor it. Okay. There's nothing in common. Okay, so go to the two sets of parentheses. We know we need an x and an x. Two numbers multiply together give you 10, differ by 3. Yep, 5 and 2, and the 5 is with the negative sign. Okay, so you should have x minus 5 and x plus 2. Okay, number one, you got to make sure you've got it factored correctly or the whole thing won't work. Okay, so all your rules in factoring come back. Okay, now set that equal to, okay, I'm going to use the letter A over and take one of those factors, and I'm going to use x minus 5 plus, and I'm going to use the letter B, take the other factor, x plus 5, or x plus 2, okay? And those two ought to be equal. What we need to figure out is what's A and what's B, okay? Everybody okay with that? Now multiply, get rid of the denominators, okay? So if we get rid of the denominators, if we multiply on both sides by, okay, the x minus 5 times the x plus 2 on both sides. Okay, when you take this whole thing and multiply this out, do it by sight. Basically, those denominators will divide out, and all that's left is the 6x minus 2. Take that whole thing times the first fraction. What divides out? The x minus 5s. And what's left is A times the quantity x plus 2. Take that whole thing times this fraction. The x plus 2's would divide out. And what's left is B times x minus 5. Okay? And we've simplified it because we got rid of the denominator. Okay? Okay? Now, one at a time, you've got to let these drop out. You've got to let let this go to 0 so that this drops out. So to let this go to 0, what's x have to be? Yep. So let x equal negative 2. So 6 times a negative 2 minus 2 equals, and go ahead and show it. We're letting this drop out. So let x equal negative 2 all the way across. And you might make a note out there, let x equal negative 2. Okay, then you'd have negative 12 minus 2 would be negative 14. The A times 0, that drops out. And then you'd have B times a negative 7. Divide by negative 7. And B should equal a positive 2. Okay? B equals a positive 2. Okay, now you got to go back up to this line, okay, and let the B drop out. To let the B drop out, this has to go to 0. The x has to go to 0. This one has to go, so this value here has to go to 0. So what's x have to be? 5. So taking another step, okay, so you'd let 6x minus 2 equals A times x plus 2. I'm just recopying that line. B times x minus 5. So to let that term drop out, let x equal 5. Okay, so now sub in 5. So you'd have 6 times 5 minus 2 equals a times 5 plus 2 plus, and this will drop out, 5 minus 5, 0, so the b drops out. So you'd have 30 minus 2 would be 28 equals 7a. 7 times a, divide by 7, and I get a equals 4. Okay. Now, a equals 4, and those are your values, but that's not your final answer. Your final answer is we're looking for what two fractions add together. Okay. So when you write it, it was the a over x minus 5, so 4 over x minus 5. Okay, plus was it 2 over x plus 2. Okay, those are the two fractions that if we add those two fractions together, we're going to get the original fraction. Okay, okay, and that's decomposing fractions into two different parts. Okay, and you're always figuring out what two fractions add together.